Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We are now live. Welcome to the August 12th, 2020 meeting of council. Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I would like to call this meeting to order. Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Bartlett, and Councillor Thompson will not be with us tonight. Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So first, we'll take roll call of those present in the room. Deputy Mayor Carlson, for the record.
Present.
Councillor Pringle.
Present.
And Mayor Dwight-Burtley.
Present.
And for those watching from home, we have our first electronic participant, a council member, Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn. Councillor Coburn, would you like to indicate that you are present for the record? And you are also muted.
Present.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, we have quorum.
Thank you. Is there any add-ons to our agenda here tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to add a discussion about the safe restart agreement from the federal and provincial governments.
Thank you, Cassie. Is there any other items to be added to the agenda? Seeing none, if you have someone to move the agenda, please put it on the floor. Moved by Councillor Coburn, second by Councillor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? All in favor of the motion? It's carried. Thank you. Declaration of continuing your interest. You can clear anytime you see fit during the meeting. Minutes of July 15th meeting. That the minutes of the council meeting held on July 15th, 2020 be adopted. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Pringle. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Ms. carried. Thank you. Announcements. This time I'd like to wish Councillor Carol Marford a happy birthday. All the best today, Carol. And a happy birthday to our clerk, Brittany Drew.
Mr. Mayor.
Public hearings, none. Presentations, none. Deputy Mayor Carlton.
Under the announcements, I just have a couple of items here that I'd like to share with the rest of council. Items that have been passed up the county where Davenport subdivision got draft approval of the subdivision at the last county council meeting. And that the new transportation routes, one of those routes will come out through Georgian Bluffs going to Townsip Peninsula 3 times a week, twice a day. So that might be information that if we're following county council, you would have seen. So that's just news to share from there.
Just good thing, Tyler, just for your information too, I had contacted Zachary Premeat, their implementer, advised him where the route is going, where the stop is going to be, for him to talk to county rep. I forget her name right now. To talk to her, yes, Stephanie Stewart, talk to her, to confirm the route and time, because it may be a benefit to the airport too. Okay. Okay, moving on to the agenda. We're down to the consent agenda. Is there any item the council would like to pull off the consent agenda? Deputy Mayor Carlson.
I would like to pull item 9.2.1, Township of Perth South. I would like to have a brief discussion on that, I think, with the treasurer or head of treasury, and whether we should actually respond to that with the province to make sure that our voices are there. I think that's going to be an important thing.
Okay, we'll pull it. And is there any other item, Deputy Mayor Carlson?
No, just that.
Councillor Colburn.
If we could, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to have 3 resolutions pulled under resolutions from other municipalities. 9.4.4, 9.4.5, and 9.4.7.1.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Coburn. Is there any other items? Seeing none? At the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs adopt the consent agenda and circulated list items 9.21, 9.4.4, 9.45, 9.47.1. And that staff be directed to receive all necessary administrative actions. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councilor Colburn. If there's no other discussion, all in favor of the motion? It is carried. Now, Deputy Mayor Carlton, we'll go to you first. Do you want to have a discussion on 9.21?
Thank you, and I may ask the Director of Finance to step in here on this one as well. We had kind of briefly discussed it before. But the idea is that there's some issues with the farm property class tax rate that affect us with setting our tax rate with properties between residential and farm. And I think it's worth us commenting further to the province, so I'll turn it over to you.
Cassie?
Thank you. So the Township of Perth South's letter is very well written, and we are in the exact same position as them. So what happens is every year when the roll is returned, a property will be classed as residential. But as the year goes on, the resident contacts us and says, but wait a minute, that's actually farmland. So with AgriCorp's assistance, MPAC goes back and assesses that property as farm tax. So when we set our budget, we set it assuming that those properties are residential and taxed at full rate. But when we actually do the billings, they're only getting taxed at a fraction of that. This happens each and every year with multiple properties, and it is a big concern for townships during the budgeting process. So the Township of Perth South is suggesting that the province looks into their current farm program and see how they can better structure it to assist municipalities. And I'm totally in support of that if council wants to send a letter supporting stuff for Perth South's recommendations.
Thanks, Cassie. Deputy Mayor Carlton, will you put a motion forward to support the letter?
There must be 3 microphones on. Thank you. Yes, I would put that motion forward that we send a letter in support of that to, I would take the provincial government and all other municipalities.
Madam Clerk, is that acceptable? Do you need to bring a motion back, or can you do it now?
I will include it as a notice of motion for the September 2nd council meeting.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So moving on, Councilor Coburn, you have 9.41 City of Owen Sound Bill M36.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would ask council to support that resolution that's been brought forward in support for Bill M36, which recognizes, what day is it now? August 1st of every year as Emancipation Day in Canada.
Okay. Councilor Coburn, are you putting a motion forward for that item?
That we develop a similar letter that goes, this letter was sent to Mr. Ruff, our Member of Parliament for Bruce Grey Owen Sound, and I would just like council to add our voice to that, that support as well.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would that be a notice of motion too?
Correct. If I'm understanding you correctly, Councillor Coburn, I will include a notice of motion in support of item 9.4.4 for inclusion on the September 2nd council agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to 9.45, Town of Orangeville, Councilor Coburn.
So similarly, supporting by resolution the training for OPP and diversity, such as was brought forward by the town of Orangeville. So I'd like to make that motion as well.
Okay. Okay, I was just pointing out, Councilor Colburn, yes. Okay, you put that forward as notice of motion too? In support? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Moving on to 947.1, Town of Armstrong. Councilor Colburn?
Right, so this is in support of long-term care home improvements as put forth by the other two municipalities that we have on our agenda, so that we would send similar correspondence in support of that resolution regarding a request for improvements in long-term care homes. I know we don't have any such homes in our municipality, but I would suspect we have many families that are impacted by the quality of care in those long-term care facilities.
Thank you, Councilor Colburn. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't copy the Grey County long-term care with that support letter, since they do facilitate long-term care for Georgian Bluffs. Would that be acceptable to you?
That makes sense to me, Mr. Mayor. It's also in regards to privately owned long-term care facilities as well, not just county-run homes. But yes, that makes sense to copy them.
Thank you. So that's all the items that we had pulled out of the consent agenda. We're down to correspondence. Grey County Solvable Conservation Authority proposed install water level monitoring gauges. How are you going to take this one?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward request and something that staff fully support. This is to help us monitor our continuous high water elevations. This is more for our internal flooding, if you will, not necessarily through the Georgian Bay or the Great Lakes high water elevations, but it's something that staff support and want to let all council know that about this opportunity, and that all the costs will be borne by Great Solid Conservation. They're just simply requesting to use our structure.
Is there we do not need more from council? It's just how do we handle this? We just agree to it, or?
I would like for council to accept it for information. I guess my word was that this would come up to their Great Solid Conservation board and would be aware of it. So it's for information, and I guess staff fully support it. I put it on to Madam Clerk Bill and see if that would require a motion.
Madam Clerk?
If you're simply accepting it for information, then we don't need a motion to do so.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Carlton?
Because I sit on Great Solid board, I'm thinking they may want a resolution from us that actually acknowledges that we are saying, yes, we're in favor of doing this. I think they may want something a little more formal from us for that. And I would be prepared to make a motion.
I think it's a cleaner cut way of doing it, because I sit on the solid conservation too, and we're not leaving it sort of open. We're actually answering the question, yes, we do support it. So I would agree to that. So Madam Clerk, we'll bring that motion back.
Correct. So just for clarity, Deputy Mayor Carlton, you are placing a notice of motion for consideration at the September 2nd council meeting in support of the installation of water level monitoring gauges.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Tyler. Moving on, we're down to committee reports. I have a recommendation that the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held on August 5th, 2020 be adopted, including recommendation COW 2020-54 to COW 2020-64. Do I summon to move to put on the floor, please? Moved by Councilor Pringle, second by Councilor Colburn. Does council have any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? It is carried. I'm just trying to catch up. We're down to staff reports. First one is a report from Cassie Rocca, Director of Finance, regarding online payment we received, and the Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs approved installing e-commerce on the existing Township of Georgian Bluffs website at a cost of $2,150, and that the Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs approved charges users a 3.5% administration fee when using online payment. Some of the booth put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councilor Pringle. Cassie, you want to speak to the report, please?
Yes, thank you. So I believe this report is pretty straightforward. What we're looking to do is turn on an existing online payment platform that's currently built into our website. With our offices being closed during COVID, our ratepayers are having difficulty making payments for certain items. To date, we've only been accepting online payments for taxes and water because people can do that through their existing banking platforms. So turning this on will allow us to collect other things, such as dog tags, land use inquiry fees, building permit fees, and it will also allow people to use their credit cards should they choose for those items. The credit card rate we're going to be charged by the provider is 3.5%. I will be looking to negotiate that with the provider and see if we can find ways to decrease that. But I don't feel that the township taxes should cover that charge. So in circumstances when someone uses a credit card, I would like to see that charge be charged back to the users. I need to work with the website provider to see if we can apply that charge just to credit cards or if we have to apply it to everything. But I wanted council to be aware that that's my intention, is to charge it back to the user.
Okay, thanks, Director of Finance. A question to you, if I may. 3.5% charge back to an item is a big charge. I have no idea. I'm trying to fathom what that might be.
It might
dog tag, for instance.
A dog tag, you're less than $1.
Yeah.
But if you're paying for a $2,000 building permit, you're looking at $70. But the option is, as well, is if you're not satisfied with paying that fee, you're still welcome to come into the office and make those payments.
Exactly.
When we were closed due to COVID, we were still accepting building permit fees in our Dropbox. But what we heard from a lot of ratepayers is that they no longer have personal checks. So it was a little bit difficult for them to make some of those payments. So all of our existing options are still there, but we're just providing another option for users.
Thank you, Cassie. Does council have any questions? Deputy Mayor Carlton?
Sorry. And I had already in an email with the Director of Finance questioned this as far as being able to get reductions in rates with somebody like Chamber of Commerce if we're a member there. So that may be a possibility going forward. But you said it would depend on whether the current provider will work with that. So
Yes, each provider is different. So the e-commerce platform we're looking to use is the one that eSolutions, which is our website, uses quite frequently at municipalities. So for simplicity, we decided to stick with them. But so I'm not sure what their policies and procedures are for a reduced rate at this time.
Okay. Does council have any other questions on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? It's carried. Okay, we're moving right on to our agenda. We're down to the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs received report OPS 2020-34 on the Operations and IT Coordinator, and the Council hereby approves entering into a 5-year contract with Waste Management of Canada Corporation for the collection of solid waste and recycling, along with disposal of all solid waste and blue box proceeding to incur at the waste management facility in Mount Forest, and further that a bylaw be sent to authorize the solid waste recycling and collection contract. Tyler, I believe this is your report, and I understand we have Louisa from Waste Management on the line with us too, and Brian, so I guess I'll turn it over to you to introduce Louisa.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Burley. My intent is to do an overview for council of this report, and then for corresponding questions you may have, I want to make sure we have the appropriate. So, Mr. Mayor,
Sorry, Director Operations, did I ask for a mover and seconder on this motion? I do not do it, I apologize for that. Go ahead, someone move it on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Franco, second by Councilor Colburn. Sorry for that, go ahead.
No, that's good. So my intent here is to have the appropriate personnel here to answer any detailed questions council may have. And not putting any pressure on anybody here, but our existing contracts will be closing on at the end of September. So I want to make sure that all the available resources are here to council to answer the questions. We've released an RFP on June 30th, two of them. So we separated the household recycling disposal and an RFP for solid waste collection. So the way that we differed this year from our existing RFPs was allowing contractors more options to bid on. Previously, we have stayed to a 2-day cycle, and it was based on actually our landfill hours that we no longer have. So what we did is we opened up the tender for possibilities for them to bid on. We offered a 1-day collection, a 4-day collection, and really tried to open it up to see where the cost savings could come from for different resources. We also allowed for an alternate option for both pickups. So again, this is opening the doors and getting as much information as we can to bring the council for the appropriate 5-year contract moving forward. I'll briefly go through some of the results. We basically had 2 bidders on recycling and solid waste. So for the solid waste, we had Miller's Waste and Waste Management. Those are considered to be status quo. In other words, the exact same system that we have now for pickup. So in that scenario, Miller Waste actually came in as low bidder. And then for our next recycling and garbage pickup, for recycling pickup only, it was between Brew Services and Waste Management. So again, Brew Services was actually the low bidder in that situation. Now it brings us to the combined proposal, which Waste Management put forward. And this is where some numbers come in. And my apologies, it does get a little confusing, and we're going to do our best to explain this to you. But the combined recycling and garbage contract was cheaper than the alternate of sourcing them separately. So I'm going to save some of those details for Brian if the council has more follow-up questions. And there's also a small detail I'd like to bring up. And that is right now for garbage, we actually only have our contract is written for garbage collection. So as for a tipping fee for the actual disposal of the garbage, that's outside of our RFP at this time. So right now we take all of our material to Miller's transfer station at I think it's $105 a ton. And again, this is in consideration of what Waste Management has to offer as well. They can actually offer us a lower tipping fee by trucking it to Forest. Now, with that said, that is a high-level overview, and I really open the floor to council to help entertain any questions or comments you may have.
Madam Clerk?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Yonke, could you please speak directly into your microphone?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Colbert, if you're having problems hearing anything, just put your hand up and I can notice you.
Sorry, Johnny.
Okay, thanks, Tyler. Were you going to turn it over to Ryan and Louise to speak first?
I think I mean, we can go down that road, but I'm open to direct questions as well, if you'd like to start isolating it down, but I'm sure they both be happy with doing a high-level review if that's council's request.
I was wondering if, before we go to questions to council, if we might hear from Louisa from Waste Management. I'm quite familiar with the company, but I wonder if she could give us an outline of her company, where they are, so on and so forth, or where the garbage goes, just an overview that way. It'd be nice to hear that from Louisa.
I think that's a great idea as well, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Brian, and hello, Council, and Mr. Mayor and staff. My name is Louisa Adset. I live in Wellington County, a township called Welfaramasa. I've been working for the company for my 20th year in July. I manage all of our municipal contracts in Southwest Ontario. We presented our RFP with an alternative bid that looked at co-collection of your waste and recycling. In Grey County, we service 3 of the municipalities already in that model. So you're looking at West Grey and Chatsworth, and we performed the recycling-only collection in Hanover. Out of our Mart Forest office is where the trucks are dispatched. It's a non-union site. We have about 80 employees and technicians, and we have a compactor division there as well. Of those 80 employees, 45% actually live in Grey County, with the majority in West Grey and further. So a lot of local talent there, and that goes to say with why it's a non-union yard. Out of that yard, we are also building a compressed natural gas station, and we'll be converting all of our trucks to CNG. We've done that investment because we see it as a long-term fuel cost savings and also sustainability option. It not only is a truck that is on green gas, but also it's quieter and it's more efficient as well. So our proposal, when you take a look at it, took a look at your model of co-collecting, which is waste on one side of the truck and recycling on the other. The waste that we pick up will be going to Lambton County, where we have the largest landfill in Canada. It's called Twin Creeks, and it's in Watford Township. We have a host agreement with Watford Township. That landfill is able to accept 1.4 million tons per year, and it has all of the environmental applications on it, including wildlife habitat, council certification. The landfill gas is also captured and powers a local greenhouse. So that's kind of the big overview. We do have quite a bit of service area that Mount Forest covers, and it's really counties and townships. So it's located, if you don't know, Mount Forest and Wellington North, which is about a good 90 kilometers away. Also to your neighbors, we perform the waste collection in South Bruce and also go as far as the waste and recycling in Northern Bruce Peninsula. So how we're going to service your community, we took a look at the private roads, the small collection areas. So we're looking at sending 4 trucks, one of them of which is a small collection vehicle to deal with the private areas and private roads. And based on the efficiencies that we've seen and we compared to Chatsworth, we believe that is the right number of trucks.
Thank you for that, Louisa. Before I turn it over to council, I need to ask you a burning question about your company, and it's a completely different way of collecting, recycling garbage in Georgian Bluffs. Will your company be going on an education, what I'm trying to say, schedule to show how the change will be?
Thank you for the question. There should be no change from what the resident sees. Right now, they were to, and I don't know if they segregated material. But we'll be collecting at the same time with the same truck. So the education component would be important, just to put out that it's the same truck that collects. And we've done that with other municipalities, that shows the dividing compartment to ensure that the recycling does get separated. The one thing I didn't mention is the recycling that we collect comes back to our transfer station in Mount Forest, and then we transfer it in tractor trailers to a plant in Burlington. That plant in Burlington is more technologically able to sort some of the materials right now, given the commodity impact, what COVID's done, and also the impact that China's had on the world markets.
Thank you, Louisa. Just what I was sort of coming at is that I think it's extremely important for a lot of regulators in Georgian Bluffs to know that we still believe in recycling, and I don't want them to feel that I just hear my phone going off saying, oh, you don't recycle anymore, you put it on the same garbage truck and just do landfill site. That's the point I was trying to make, that we're still recycling, still diverting a lot from landfill sites, and I think that's very important that we make sure that's educated out there. Thank you, Louisa. Council, any questions? Council Pringle.
Hey, Lisa, it's Graham Ringel here, Councillor. My question is, I guess, with the pickups, right now we get picked up every Wednesday for garbage and every 2 weeks for recycling. Does that change? Does the schedule change? How is this going to affect what we do here now?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. The RFP had responses for 3 options, which is all Monday, status quo, and 4 days a week. We bid on the status quo, which is the 2 days per week, so the collection day is not going to change. The one thing to note, and important to note, is that residents just need to make sure that they put it out at the same time at 7 o'clock, by 7 o'clock in the morning. Our routes might be different, which means we're coming in from a different area and we might start somewhere else. So if they're used to a truck coming by at noon, that noon might be 7 o'clock and we wouldn't want to miss them. So I think that's going to be part of what Brian discussed as kind of the initial education to make sure and enforce that material gets set out by 7 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louisa. Deputy Mayor Carlson.
Thank you. I think I heard, though, that the second part of that question was, would all recycling be picked up weekly now where it was bi-weekly before? So would that change the recycling schedule so it's picked up always with the garbage?
No, the recycling is going to be continued to be collected bi-weekly.
Thank you.
I'm totally confused. Tyler, maybe you can help me out with that. Right now, our recycling is picked up every second week. It's going to stay the same in this new program. It's not going to be picked up weekly. So, just want to clarify that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you're correct. The status quo, they're bidding on the exact same collection system that we have right now. And I can see where the question comes from. This is a dual collection truck. Why would they make a all 1 week? But no, that's not what they did on it. It's the exact same system we have. Garbage 1 week or every week, and then bi-weekly for recycling.
Councilor Colburn, you have a question, or you tell me you can't hear? Oh, sorry.
Just struggling to hear a little bit. Sorry. Thank you, Tyler.
So, Councilor Colburn, do you have a question too? Okay. We'll certainly see if we can speak louder to make sure you hear. If you aren't hearing, please put your hand on your ear and I can see your ear. Okay. Does council have any other questions? Staff have any questions? Tyler, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for conclusion, we intend to bring back this agreement and possible bylaw to the public meeting. And again, it's just to show support of the lowest bidder through this tendering process, and hopefully giving council and everybody a little bit more time to think about this rather large decision and large contract.
I think it's great, and I look forward, I hope that most considering that council does approve the contract. I think it's a great move, but the other concern I got, the ratepayers in Township of Georgian Bluffs, a lot of them do take advantage of the Middle Waste transfer station, and they still can't, I guess, but it would be a direct cost. Whereas before they made anything that we had taken up there.
If you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, yeah, no, Miller Waste, the transfer station is a business. It's a standalone business, and we've never had an agreement with the transfer station itself, other than bringing our collection shipping there. So again, their doors are open to business, pretty much any resident that wants to come there. So it's 100% that is still going to be utilized for transfer station, but it will be a part of their governing rates. So again, they just initiated just actually cost money to bring recycling in, as well for that item. And as Louisa brought up before, if there's actually any renovations or anything major going on, there's a lot of companies that we drop a bin off, and that's dealt with in a slightly different situation, as we don't have a transfer station.
Okay. Thank you, Tyler. Louisa, do you have any other comments?
Just that we're very excited to start servicing Georgian Bluffs, and you brought up sustainability and making sure things get recycled, and we do almost all of our educational component relating to properly sorting out the recycling. The one thing that I think is raised is the education, so that's going to be on top of the blue box change and the transition, pretty key. So we're looking forward to seeing what kind of product you have and educating at the curb, and then other venues that you may choose, from print to social media.
Thank you, Louisa. Does council have any other questions on the motion before us? Councilor Colbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wondered if I could ask Louisa if they also have trucks that have the triple bins that can accommodate green boxes as well.
Are you saying green boxes for organics or recycling carts?
No, I'm talking about organics.
That's a great question into the future because of the potential organics ban from landfills. That isn't part of this RFP, but depending on the quantity, that is something that you can integrate into a co-collection. We don't have the 3 different compartments. When you're dealing with organics, depending on how wet that is, you really do need a sealed tight unit to service, to ensure there's no leaking on the roads. So that, I think, is something into the future, depending on the transition plan, to definitely look into, that it doesn't have the 3 compartments. It's not efficient. Why it's not efficient is that not every compartment will fill at the same time. So any contractor, you don't want your recycling to fill up first and then have half empty other commodities. You're not being as effective as you can. And it defeats the purpose from the greenhouse gas impact, etc.
Thank you.
Councilor Colburn, does that answer your question? Okay. Louisa, I have one more question for you, if you don't mind. Holidays, Christmas, New Year's, all exciting days. I'm just wondering, how does your company handle when it's garbage day on Christmas Day? Like, is that part, I've never been into the detail in the RFP, so maybe it's there. Tyler, you want to answer that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it's outlined in the RFP process. It's all has to do with scheduling, and I can't remember the exact wording, which is not in front of me, but Christmas Day was one consideration. It has to be scheduled in advance, and we had a small hiccup there last year. the schedule was coming before we sent out our calendars. So we revised that, and we're going to have that up here before our calendars.
Okay, thanks very much. Does council have any other questions on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Thank you, Councilor Colbert. It's been carried. Okay, moving on for agenda, we're down to supply stockpile of winter sand. Recommendation that the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs receive report OPS 2020-35 from Brian Anderson, Operation and IT Coordinator, and RFP 2020-07 for supply of stockpiling winter sand be awarded to RF King Holdings Limited. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlson, second by Councilor Pringle. Brian or Tyler want to speak to this report first?
I would, as he's got his hands busy back there with the IT portion of this, if you want to understand.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, this is the type of RFP process I like. It's very straightforward. We're dealing with our winter sand supply and stockpile. We had 3 bidders this year. They closed up same days our waste collection and garbage collection. And staff is recommending that the lowest contractor be chosen. I'd be happy to entertain any questions or comments council may have.
I have a question, Director of Operations. For instance, if you got the Sarawak depot, for instance, the sand is mixed before it's put in. Can this company do that?
Yes.
I'm saying mixed with salt, which you clarify.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's a great question. How they do it is, that actually might be a really good question for Brian. Because he knows the detail on this one. Brian, are you available to answer that?
Okay, I don't care how they do it, I'm just concerned, do they do it?
Oh, yeah, yes, it'll be written in the contract. I'm just not sure the exact wording of the stipulation. I know, our previous supplier, they have specialized machines that do a really good job. So, Brian, are you there now?
Yes, so that is part of the contract that they do that.
Okay, just follow on, no, thank you. Does council have any questions? See none, all in favor of the motion? It's carried. Thank you. We're down to public question period. Madam Clerk, has there any questions come in from the public?
No, none have been received.
Thank you. We're down to bylaws now. Recommendation, whereas council has given consideration to the written comments submitted by the agencies in the decision on proposed zoning bylaw amendment application 2020-81 for Value Stream Production Systems Limited, care of Ron Taylor, for property located on 132 Mountain Lake Road, and whereas council has considered oral submissions made at the public meeting, therefore be it resolved, the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs is satisfied that the proposed amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020 and other governing regulations, and the bylaw 2020-81 being read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed with the mayor and clerk, seal of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw. Someone to move the motion on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Pringle, second by Councilor Colbert. Any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? It's carried. We're down to our next bylaw. Recommendation of bylaw 2020-78 being a bylaw to appoint acting clerk, and repeal bylaw 2020-33 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed with mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and endorsed in bylaw. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlson, second by Councilor Pringle. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? It's carried. Down our next bylaw. The recommendation, the bylaw 2079 being a bylaw to appoint a chief administration officer and a duty clerk be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colbert, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion before us? Thank you. It's carried. Welcome, John.
I was worried about that.
We're going to get it sealed quick. Moving on to our next bylaw. Recommendation of bylaw 2020-80 being a bylaw to authorize execution of a green municipal fund grant agreement with Federation of Canadian Municipalities to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor clerk, sealed the corporation, endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Pringle. Any discussion on the motion before us? All in favor of the motion? It's carried.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Colburn had her
What was
hand
that for you? I'm sorry, Councillor Colburn, go ahead.
That's okay. I apologize for the question. It's mostly for my own learning. Is this bylaw just a general procedural bylaw, or does this pertain to a particular grant that we have recently applied for?
I'm going to let the Director of Finance answer that. Go ahead, Cassie.
So this bylaw is to pass the grant agreement for the biodigester feasibility study that council approved moving forward with that study. So this is to accept the grant for that.
And so that grant is just a one-time grant for this particular activity only, but we'll have opportunity to apply for more grants in the future?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you, Cassie.
Okay, if there's no other questions, all in favor of the motion before us? It is carried. Moving on for agenda, we're down to unfinished business. Verbal update from the Director of Operations regarding the ATV issues of AC Commission land. Tyler, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess first off, I'd like to apologize to the council. We did promise you a report coming back to today's meeting. This is a very thick file, going back all the way to 2016. And it's taking staff a while to process a lot of this information and to make sure that we're bringing the most accurate information forward for your decision. By no ways are we trying to put this off or delay this report. It's simply, it's involving all of us. It's the planning department, it's bylaw enforcement, and of course operations, facilities managers, and it's a big request. So at this time we are waiting for correspondence from NEC, and I know we said that before, but that's really going to help us identify these areas. And that's kind of where we're at with it.
Tyler, do you expect that you and your staff and the NEC and so on will have the information together so we can bring it back at our September meeting?
I don't want to make any false promises, Mr. Mayor. That is my honest intent. To expedite this process, it really would be great to enter into full discussions with NEC and to get some great guided structure from them, as we're interpreting NEC's criteria right now. And it takes a long time. That's a thick planning manual. So if we can get them involved and help them narrow down the areas. And again, the history is great. There's a lot of good knowledge on the background of this. And there's actually a report that was brought to council the same day last year by Mr. Winters. So it has a great summary in it, and it has a lot of information regarding this report. I'm happy to share with council. I didn't have it.
Just, I appreciate what you're up against, Tyler, you and your staff and so on, but this has been on the books for a long, long time. And I think we need to deal with this and sooner than later, so I'm hoping we bring it back in September for sure.
I will do my absolute best, sir. With your approval, would it be okay if I circulate the annual report to council for a quick update? It again gives you a nice summary of where it left off with last year at this time. And again, we've had recent correspondence on this very same issue, but that'll give everybody an opportunity to catch up to where we left off with, and perhaps a jumping off for us as well, so not to carry the events.
I don't have a problem with that, Madam Clerk. Could you send another to all of council, please? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have any questions from council? Seeing none, so we'll move on.
Happy to.
Oh, sorry, Council Colburn. Go ahead.
Now, you knew I'd have a question about this one, Mr. Mayor. Tyler, I appreciate what you're up against, and I do understand that there are a lot of nuances. What I'm concerned about is that there's not the political will, Mr. Mayor, with the current council to move this forward in an appropriate amount of time. My understanding is it's been going on for almost 5 years now, and if we want to look at the practical impact of dragging our heels on this, it is to our natural environment in areas that are the most highly protected according to the Niagara Escarpment Plan. So every time we delay this for another season, there's more and more damage being done. We've also heard from ratepayers that there's also damage being done along shoreline road allowances without permits and without having the proper consults in place with the Conservation Authority. I have to wonder if it's not necessarily about the difficulties and the complexities, but rather a lack of political will to move this ahead. And I think we do need to make this a priority. This was the deadline that our former acting CAO gave us for this to be resolved specifically for the Gleason Lake area. And here we are again at another deadline and another season that's just about gone by, and we haven't had any progress. So I have to say I am disappointed. I think as council and the political representatives here, we need to all be on the same page and moving this forward so that we have a bylaw that's not in violation of the Niagara Escarpment Plan, the Planning Act, and any other official plans that might be affected by it.
Thank you, Council Colburn. They're good comments. I do not think the council are dragging our heels and not have a political will to get this corrected, because I, for one, would like to see this come to a head so we get the proper information to make a decision on, to make sure everything is being done in a proper manner. And I think that's very important to get that information. And I'll even look to the Director of Operations and our CEO to hopefully put this as a priority so we can get this thing resolved and bring it back to council for council to make a decision. Deputy Mayor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would agree that it's very important. I think the council has felt that all along, that it's very important. But I disagree that it's political will holding it back. I think what's holding it back is the NEC not coming back to us with the information we've been requesting, and that makes it difficult for us to move forward. So I think staff have been working through a very difficult situation with this, trying to get information, trying to interpret what the NEC could easily interpret for us and give us the information that we need to move forward. And that's been my experience over the entire time I've been on council, that's where we've been waiting for information from. So I think we just keep waiting on NEC to come forward, and they are the ones dragging their heels.
Well, I do not want to sit here tonight and try to blame blame on anybody. All I'm asking for is for senior staff, our CEO, to put this as a top priority so we can get a resolution, bring the information back, so we can get this thing resolved one way or the other. And it needs to be resolved. But you need the information, council needs the information to base a decision on. So that's what I'm asking for. Okay? Councilor Colburn, did that sort of answer your question? Because I want to make sure you have opportunity to say whatever you want.
Yeah, so it wasn't really a question, it was just a statement. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Colbert. So we'll move on, we no new business. Oh, sorry. Director of Finance, apologize, you do have new business.
Thank you. So sorry to add this last minute, but we just received this information this afternoon. A little while back, the provincial and federal governments announced that they were looking at ways of how they could support municipalities in the effects of COVID. Today we received a letter from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing that the township will be receiving a payment of $318,000 to support us in the hardships we've incurred during COVID. So staff will report back on this with more detail, but we do not meet again to September, so I wanted to let you know that this announcement was made today. And we will report back on what this looks like for the township.
Thank you, Cassie, that was great news to hear. And this is just the first part of it, is it not?
Yes, so we will put the formal letter that we received from the ministry on the next council agenda in September. But this is phase 1, and there is an option for phase 2. But our report to council from staff will detail that more thoroughly.
Thank you. That's great news. Does council have any questions of our Director of Finance? Deputy Mayor Carlson?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question. Does this letter also outline, are there restrictions in how these funds can be used or how we have to report that back?
Yes, there are reporting requirements and the funds must be used for COVID-related issues.
Okay. I don't think we'll have a problem with that. Okay. If there's no other discussion on that, we'll move forward. We're down to our closed session. I have a recommendation that the Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs move into closed session at 5:03 p.m. with the Chief Administration Officer, Acting Clerk, Treasurer, Director of Finance, meeting in the virtual room to discuss minutes of previous closed sessions, July 15th, 2020, and August 5th, 2020. July 15, 2020, August 5th, 2020, information. How do you say that word, Cassie?
Explicitly.
Explicitly supplying confidence to the municipality or local board by Canada, a province, a territory, or a crown agency of any of them grant application status. A consistent plan, procedure, criteria, or instructions to be applied to announce any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, inter-township fire department negotiations, and personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees, update from the CEO. Someone's moved to the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Pringle, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. All in favor of the motion? It is carried. We are now in closed session. what we're going to discuss, nothing more. I have a recommendation here that the bylaw number 2020-82 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on August 12, 2020, be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor, clerk, sealed and sealed the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Do I have someone to move the motion on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. I need one more motion. Our next meeting is September 2nd. And Madam Clerk, I assume will be the same format we have.
Correct. It will be in the same format. It will also commence at 4 o'clock. I have every intention of presenting council with a report regarding the amended start times that we had approved at the beginning of the pandemic for council to determine whether we'll carry on with 4 o'clock meetings or revert back to 7. But for now, due to planning notices and such, 4 o'clock meetings will remain in September.
Thanks, Whitney. And on behalf of council, I would like to say a special thank you to you, Brian, for setting this up this time. Very high pressure to get it done. You did an excellent job. And I do not believe we had any pickups at all tonight, so thank you very much for doing that. So I need one more motion to adjourn. Motion by Councilor Pringle, second by Councilor Coburn. All in favor? We're now adjourned. Thanks, everybody. We're now adjourned.
Thank you.